What's up, everyone? Dylan here from the Expo's podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode. I miss doing these kind of intros to give you guys a little bit of context into what you're about to tune into. Um, Walt and I sit down with Kai Calder, and probably not many of you know who Kai is. I didn't know who Kai was. I was on a kite trip in the Keys doing a 60-mile kite race, like a downwinder on a twin tip. And Kai was part of the event, and he was hanging out with us, and he stayed with me and Eric. And we were just chit-chatting about foiling and this and that. And he had so much insight into the industry and worked in a bunch of different projects with Lift and Kai Concepts and building e-foils and selling out the tech. And so we tried to get a bunch of that info out of him. He was a bit careful of what he said, I think. But rad dude, just knows a ton. He's been in the industry for a long time. So this won't be the last time that he's on the podcast. So there is some history in there, where Kai came from and how he got into foiling. And then we just try to include him in the conversation of like what's relevant and some tech stuff that we had on our mind. So really cool, really great to have Kai on. And like I said, won't be the last time. Hope you guys enjoy this episode and just another frother in the industry, somebody that you didn't know that was so involved that has a hand in something that you might be riding. So hope you enjoy it. Thanks, guys. What's up, Kai?
Dylan, how we
What you
doing, big dog?
That's so funny. When I was like naming this session, I put Kai Dog. I don't know why, but I think it's because you always say that.
Always. What up, big dog?
Man, I don't even know. Kai, what's your last name again?
You're a terrible host.
Calder?
Calder. Yeah.
Calder.
Wait, who are we
Let's start
interviewing
it off.
today?
All right, let's
Really, who is this guy?
I'm like,
So who the fuck is Kai?
well, yeah, Walt called me. He's like, so what are we doing this morning? And I was like, well, interesting. I don't really know either, but met him a couple times. And when I met you just now in the Florida Keys with Eric, you were like talking about foiling and your background and what you've done. I was like, I asked Eric, I'm like, hey, is this guy full of shit? Or is it like, or does he really like have all of this history in foiling? He's like, no, for real. I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Sleeper.
It was pretty interesting. Like, I don't even know where to start with you because you've got, I mean, I don't want this podcast to turn into a Kai history lesson. But I mean, we definitely need some kind of a recap.
Yeah. No, where did it all start? So, man, I started kiting back in like 2008, like best Waru days, right? I was 14 and kind of just took off with that, was obsessed with wind sports. And then my dad's a big time sailor. He was slowly, he's done quite a few America's Cup campaigns. And so as the boats have progressed to planing, to foiling, and I think the first time they were foiling was in San Francisco. And so around then he was in Alameda, and he was biking home from the naval base back home from work one day. And he saw these guys pulling out this boat, this like trimaran boat that had foils on it. And he was just amazed. He was like, who are you guys? Like, what are you doing? And that it ended up being Don Montague and his team. And I don't know if you've heard of the Kite Boat Project or ironically, the company's name is Kai Concepts, but that's kind of where I started. I started working there, was doing a few internships, and those guys kind of got me introduced to foiling. This was probably like 2014, and kind of just from there, like caught the bug of foiling and was so obsessed with it. Like I was thinking about.
That was like foiling boats is how you got into foiling?
Exactly. So the America's Cup then was foiling catamarans, right? That was kind of the theme. And then the Kite Boat Project, the concept behind that was trying to set a Transpac record, right? And this was a boat that was pulled by like a 20 to 50 square meter kite. There's a few YouTube videos of Don back in the day, like in Maui with like a 50 square meter kite. I remember seeing this thing in like, I feel like 2011, 2012. I was like, no way somebody's making something this big. But yeah, it just happened to be like right where they were doing the America's Cup. This other project was going on. And my dad was just like, dude, I have a 19-year-old kid. he's obsessed with this stuff. He would love to like sweep the floors or whatever, just be a part of it. And kind of from there, like, my composite apprenticeship, foiling, and engineering, I guess, like knowledge base started to grow. And these guys really just got me into foiling and kite foiling.
You're an engineer?
No, I went to school for business, but I mean that I worked after school. I worked at Kai Concepts for 7 years.
And it's Kai Concept by chance?
Yeah, no. So it stands, it's an acronym for Kite Assisted Instrument, right? And as I kept working at the project there, it kind of grew from like, this foiling boat, and we have all this knowledge about kind of control systems. Instead of doing mechanical kind of ride height control, let's do electric. We can do an electric foil. Let's do an electric foiling boat. And, Don's kind of like a mad scientist in and of himself. And he's always just tinkering and creating these new products and kind of pushing the envelope of what can be done. And that's kind of, that's where, so I met Chris Radkowski at Chrissy Fields doing kite racing, but Chris had also helped us with the jet foiler and designing some of our wings. And, that's kind of where I know where I've met him from and worked closely with him. And I'm stoked to see his foils blowing up. I mean, it's crazy kind of the wave that F4 has right now. I feel like back in the day, it was like, when we were in the race scene, it was like Mike Zychek, Mike's Lab. That was it. If you don't, that's the best foil that you can get. And now it's like F4 is kind of, blowing up and coming in the scene. So, not that Mike's isn't bad or anything. He's still incredible and does incredible craftsmanship. He's an absolute wizard. But
just so you know, on the back end, we had a call like 3 days ago with Walt, and I said, "Hey, bro, next time we do a podcast, you cannot say the word F4. Like you got just stop it." And he's like, "Yeah, let's make a rule. Like every time you say it, you got to chug an IPA and do 10 burpees."
I think that's like 20, 30 burpees and like 3 IPAs. I just heard, right?
This is going to be a rough morning for you.
No, of course. I mean, it's cool you're hearing it and feeling it too, right? I think like that's been a topic of conversation the last like few months here on the podcast a bunch, because it is interesting to see the evolution where we kind of felt like, I think a lot of us in the sport were feeling like, oh man, well, how much further could this progression go in where the foils are? I mean, everybody's put out so much in the last 5 years, like how much further, and then to see it have another nice jump forward where we're getting more of this like high end stuff. I mean, obviously what Mike did with Mike's Lab and the feel he got there and be able to translate to something you can just like order online and be riding. And it feels more surfy and intuitive too, which is cool.
I mean, and for Chris, like to give him his props, like, it's not like Chris just all of a sudden like blew up on the scene. Like this has just been like a labor of love for him for like, I don't want to say 11 years, probably even more. Because back in the windsurfing days, like obviously he was probably designing stuff. But in terms of foils, like I'll never forget, like 2014, like he was, just mad scientist doing all these different layups, all these different connections to now, after all that time, have something that is really kind of robust and kind of mass scalable. Is really cool to see. And it was fun. Was always coming. It was fun. Like every Friday he would come into work and be like, "Oh, I got something good for you guys to test." And, Don would bring it back to Maui and go ride it. And yeah, it was fun to tinker with him.
I don't think he's changed much because we still get, clips of like what's coming every few weeks. He's designing like, the guy never sleeps. He just like works and then designs all night and then rides for like 2 hours and then goes back to designing,
It's crazy. And I mean, I don't know so he has a business partner, design partner, Al. And so him and Al are testing all the time at Coyote Point or Chrissy Field. And then Al has a son, Kai. And so it's cool to see like his team growing so much and just having all these like good testers. I feel like back in the day for Mike's Lab, everybody was riding so much of his stuff. So he was getting so much more feedback. And so he was able to develop and try new things so much quicker and kind of, achieve that feel that was kind of like, the North Star of foil feels, and now everybody's caught up to that. And now, Chris has a great team of people, and obviously the Hawaii, the Maui guys and everybody in Hawaii, like that's kind of, if your foil's proven in Hawaii, you're ready for mass scale, right? It's kind of the ultimate proving ground.
Man,
so.
I think the biggest item of import into Hawaii right now out of any industry is F4 foils. It is silly.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I'm sure.
It's silly. I mean, I haven't been there, but I mean, it's they're telling stories about what's going on over there.
Well, this is
and
just
how
such a
much
cool
stuff
piece
they're
of the
shipping in.
industry, right?
I think it's kind of insane.
Its birth is it's such a new sport, right? Like, I mean, Kai was 14 getting into kiting, which evolved into, touching foiling at an early stage. I mean, that was a decade ago, but like, it's still just such a small scene. It's cool to see people like you're saying, like Chris, really kind of coming out of it and having a moment and getting to design some cool stuff. And yeah.
So where did this Kai concept thing go?
So yeah, I mean, I ended up, like, I kind of started when I was in college, right? And my first, so this was 2014 when Don was like, so it was funny enough, the first summer I was there, like we didn't even go on the kite boat, right? Like, I was just sweeping the shop floor. We were moving from one shop to the next. And I told my dad, I was like, dude, this place sucks. Like, like, why'd you have me come here? Like, I'm just schlepping it, man. This is tough. And so Don had called me and he was like, hey, look, I know that wasn't kind of like the ideal summer. Come out next summer. You'll stay at my place. And, I promise it'll be a little more exciting. And sure enough, I mean, that summer we did so much testing. We were trying all these different like control systems for the foils and, doing electric sensors and, using the wands similar to a mothboat, all of these different ways to deploy the kite. I mean, it was exciting. I mean, we were there until 7 or 8 o'clock every day, just by choice, because there was like so much to do and it was exciting. It was an adrenaline shot, so to speak. And so I was hanging out at Don's place. We're going through his garage. I'm like, oh, what do you have there? And it was an old Carafina foil. And this was like a kind of like an air chair aluminum style foil, but it was like, fully built into the board. And I guess this would have been a board that you would see like Laird Hamilton riding back in the days with the snowboard bindings on. But instead of snowboard bindings, we put kiteboard foot straps on it. And so that was kind of like my first foil that I got into, right? And tried to ride that thing. It's like a bucking bronco. I totally cut my foot on it. And I was almost like, dude, no way. I was into the twin tip freestyle thing. I was just like, I don't know if this is really for me. But sure enough, just kind of kept at it. And, that summer I ended up trying a lift and a 2014 lift and was just really obsessed with it and placed my order. This was like back in the day when like getting a Spots 2 for a race foil was like the thing to have, right? And you needed an Alex Aguirre board, custom Alex Aguirre board with a Spots 2 foil. And you were like, the best on the scene. And I guess that next summer, they had actually worked, Don is good buddies with Alex and he had flown over from Maui and I guess they were helping him kind of figure out how to actually like make foils. Like, what kind of connection am I going to do? I want to make the front wing modular and kind of working on that like tapered conical connection. And, sure enough, I don't know if they still have this foil back there, but it was kind of one of the early Alex Aguirre race foils, go foils. We had built one Kai concept style with like this crazy ultra high modulus. One of the guys that worked there, my buddy Joe Brock, I mean, this guy is a composite wizard and just made like the best race foil. And that was that summer was like kind of taking it another level from, I guess like, this Carafino foil to this beautifully built, ultra high modulus foil. And it was like, oh my gosh. And ended up going down to Chrissy Fields and was, that was the proving ground, right? If you could go and, because I was really getting into the racing. The first summer I went there, I was getting on the course board and it was basically like, got my Mike's Lab course board, was like, here I am, I'm ready for it. And then the next year is like, nope, we're foiling. And those boards were like obsolete.
Yeah. I don't know how many of our listeners are actually like kite foilers and how early people got into the scene. Like, everything that you're talking about, I was there, right? 2012, 2013, 14. There was only a couple foils you could get. You could get a Spots, you could get a lift, the Carafino, but then once you could get a lift, Spots, and then the Go foils, which was not Go foils, it was Aguirre.
Right.
Exactly. It was an Alex Aguirre foil, or I don't know what the name was. I guess it was just Aguirre, and they had the same colors back then. They were red and blue.
Yeah, exactly.
they didn't change when they got over into the. Yeah,
Alex
and he was
racing.
racing.
He was a savage. he'd show up to the parking lot bumping Tool or whatever, and it was like 9 a.m., 8 a.m. at Chrissy Fields going for race day, and it was a crazy scene back then.
Yeah,
totally.
But
what a different scene to the surf foiling scene, right?
Oh yeah,
and I mean, obviously it's meshing over, and those companies that are still there, Lift and GoFoil, right? And GoFoil made that first like big surf foil. Lift made all these surf foils, and then like it's such an iconic time to get into it, like, and to still see these companies around and what's happening now. It's really cool.
Yeah, and kind of building off of that, you speak of Lift. So like basically I did my first kite foil race that summer when I was trying the first GoFoil and was hooked. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't get enough of this. So I kept kind of training and practicing. And ironically, there's a family friend. I was at this, beach, just me out there kiting, and this family friend walks by, and I hadn't seen him in a while. This guy, Ted, and he's like, what is it? I said, oh, it's a hydrofoil. And he said, I go heli skiing with this guy. I think he I don't know, Mike. I was like, okay. He's like, I think his name's Mike Leeson. And he's like, I think he does MHL. I was like, oh, MHL Custom Lift. And he's like, yeah, I know the guy. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So that's Nick's dad. And he's a absolute guru and shared so much knowledge with me, and is a amazing guy. And basically this guy Ted connected me with Mike, and kind of from there I was like, all right, hey, can I come out? Like, I love composites, I love hydrofoils, I'd love to just come out and work in the factory for 2 months or whatever. And kind of did an internship out there in Aguadilla, like on shacks, working in the factory, building
the original.
I think we were building
factory or warehouse
on the property, on Mike's property. Yeah,
the original, the OG.
The original. Yeah. Well, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure it is a factory, but it was Now it's a factory. Now it's a factory. That place is wild. Oh my god, dude, it's insane. I mean, look at Lyft. What an operation. So, and it's in Puerto Rico. Like, crazy.
It's insane.
Factory.
So sure enough, Mike kind of took this dive on this random kid, calling him, being like, dude, I'm so obsessed with it. And I mean, I got so lucky. For that internship, I was staying down there with them, going and kite foiling shacks every single day, and going from shacks to Playa Hobos and back. And Nick was into the race scene as well. And it was cool to kind of see the evolution of what they were working on, and kind of, that opened up my mind of the manufacturing aspect of it. There's the development side of things that Kai Concepts was really focused on, and then their specialty of being able to kind of mass produce and solve these hard problems. And it's cool to see his evolution of where he's at now with making foils and the e-foil. And kind of from there, I ended up finishing school, and I reached back out to Nick and was like, hey, like, I loved what I did. I love working on the project. I think it was right when he had released the first video of him like cruising through the Crash Boat Beach, I think it is. And he's doing Mr. Cool with the e-foil, flips the hat back. And I was just like, man, I got to work here. This is insane. And
did you hear whispers of the e-foil when you were there and you had that little internship for a couple months, or no?
You know what? It's funny because there were a few dinner, we'd go out, and he's like, man, I have this idea, and I think, people are going to be mind blown in the next few years. And so he had already like kind of had, this was probably 2015. And I think he was already kind of had the concept, or the vision of what, he wanted to do. And he hadn't built anything out yet, but he was working on it back then. And then sure enough, I saw the video and I was like, dude, this is what you were talking about. He's like, yeah, this is it. So I ended up, after school, I moved out to Puerto Rico for 3 months. It was kind of right during hurricane season, and basically was, they were just kind of starting out. They were receiving some boards and stuff like that, but it wasn't anywhere near at the scale that it is now. But kind of got to ride the first version e-foil. It's like this metal box battery case with this like RC remote. And I was just like, dude, what is this thing? And took it out, and the feeling just blew my mind. Like, I couldn't believe it, and around that time, he was starting to make more surf foils as well. So kind of understanding that different design, the different aspect ratio, lower aspect, he's like, I know, this is a giant wing, but I'm telling you, once you understand how the hydrodynamics of it work, it's going to feel like very surfy and loose. And I was just like, 150, man, this is way too big. But sure enough, you get the speed and the e-foil. And I was like, okay, kind of blowing my mind there.
Because were you a surfer at that point, or you're just kite foiling?
I was more
because
like,
kite foils are like this big,
Yeah, no, exactly. I grew up kite surfing, and so I really loved the surfing aspect of it. And then obviously I was just more into the racing. And then this 150 that he had started out with had kind of blended both of those worlds together in a fun way. And that was kind of right when I had started prone foil surfing and just getting into the hang of it. I mean, he was so good. Nick was insane. And I was just like, man, if only, I could foil surf like this and actually pump, and kind of caught the bug from there, got a 170. And, for me with my foil surfing career, that's kind of, really where it took off, and kind of my passion of designing and wanting to develop all different foils instead of just like racing. And, because at that time I was racing on a Delta hydrofoil, so Delta George, and this was like kind of his V1, V2.
Oh, George.
I mean, yeah, he's a mad scientist in and of himself, making
like the whole industry is just
like
full of like
Rhode
just
Island
tweakers.
In his garage.
Dude, it's so funny, like, this whole industry, and you're like you hear all these names, right? And they're all doing their own thing, but they're all so what a bunch of characters.
I guess from there, unfortunately, we had Irma come through, so I stayed for Irma, and I was like, whew, I mean, we dodged a bullet there. All right, like there's no way another one can happen. Like, and then all of a sudden Maria came through, and I said, all right, guys, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go home, play it safe in Florida.
Between
did you leave before the hurricane hit?
I did. Yeah.
Wow,
it was crazy. Yeah,
good
it was.
call.
I think it was a day or two before Maria hit the island. I basically bought my last flight, bought the last flight out. Anyway, yeah, made it off. And, unfortunately I hadn't heard from them for like 3 weeks, and I was freaking out. I was out to them. And, I think, Nick's brother works in San Juan there, and he called from the office and was just like, hey man, look, obviously we've been smoked here by Maria, and, if you can come back if you want, but if you want, you'll be living camping style basically for the next 3 months. So
Damn.
we kind of, unfortunately we parted ways there, but, Nick really inspired me with just his passion for design, and always, how to make a prototype. Like, he was always working on different designs and always making new prototype molds and making new wings. Like, he was really into the racing scene as well. So he was always making different racing foils, whether it be stabilizer, front wing, doing different types of boards. He was kind of the first guy I saw with a nice like concave deck in the race board, and, kind of working on like the ergonomics for the feel of everything.
I think he was also obviously a great athlete, and I think like seeing his surf style and watching him, like, it makes sense. Like, he was very intuitive about how he approached design, and I think like did a lot of things for shape that really drove the industry forward, right? Like, he became kind of the obviously the first surf high aspects and how much that affected the industry. Take e-foil and all those other things that he's done out of it, but just like how that affected surf foiling, and then even how just the aesthetics, right? Everybody's chasing his aesthetics and the board shapes and whatever. So I mean, it's changed a lot since then, and we have a crazy spectrum of great designs out there. But I mean, in the early days, he really was kind of on this, just gets the finesse of it, right? Like, everything he does is so pretty, and just like it looks like well-engineered, well-designed pieces of equipment, right? The whole thing is just,
I mean, look at the brand. You just look at the brand and you're like from when I was kite foiling and I started and I bought a lift. I mean, I still have the first one I have. It's like broken in half, but it was beautiful. Like the carbon, like, yeah, how the carbon showed through with fades of black, and the lift logo was in black. The board was beautifully painted, probably hand painted in Puerto Rico, like, yeah, like carbon, right. Like, it's just everything was so beautiful. And then as that brand's developed, and I mean, what they're doing right now with their e-foils, Like it's all plug and play. Like, I mean, it's just beautiful.
He just got good style, man. They just got a good brand. You know, they built a good brand from the ground up and said, I'm going to pay attention to all the details and I'm going to reinforce what I want the brand to be every time I look at everything. And he didn't lose sight of that. And I think that's why it's such a strong brand today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
And he also, you know, like big thing, like he rides everything and he just draws inspiration from that, right? Like you look at a lot of people nowadays, like let's just say North, for example, with a modular wing set. You know, I think their modular design is great, right? Obviously, the future evolution of it would probably be to integrate that fuselage, that connection, right? Have it be integrated into the front wing. So it has a little more hydrodynamic kind of taper to it and it's better flow and kind of, you know, the initial piercing, right? There's no hard kind of part lines where, you know, in theory, I'm pretty sure like hard lines, hard corners aren't too bad hydrodynamically, but obviously from Nick using it and because he was doing modular connections over time, right? I mean, you look at the first slingshot foil that he was working on, right? That whole, you had a few different wings I think you could get, and kind of how it all fit together was awesome. And I think he was the first person to have that clamp design as well.
It was like it was like a V,
right?
Like this. It was like a V slot,
right? And so that, you know, how he had that with the recess on the fuselage.
And it was so thin. I mean, nowadays it wouldn't hold together.
Yeah,
like
no
what
way.
we're doing with these wings, but it was like thin carbon, hold it into like a little triangle, and you're like, now you look at it and you're like, oh my god, that thing would just like.
Yeah, right. But for its time, it was amazing. And then his next step of that is him realizing like, ooh, you know, I don't like all of these different, you know, I don't know if this was how it was, but I could just envision that the evolution of it to having, you know, for example, that fuselage integrated in with nice clean radiuses and, you know, that's him just using it over time. And I feel like there's still some, you know, some brands out there that do a modular setup, but I think, you know, the way now is to have that fuselage and front wing be integrated and, you know, kind of how most brands are doing it now. But, you know, you just see his development over time and that experience, you know, that's just years of knowledge. And, you know, to give him credit, like he was kind of, I would say one of the first, you know, there was race foils that were obviously integrated like that, but in terms of like a surf foil, e-foil, kind of that consumer aspect of it, like he was kind of the first, I'd say, to really push that feel, you know, in that aspect.
Yeah, because in like 2017, 18, maybe it was later, his front wing, it was all monoblock.
Right.
The whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The front, the back, everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had kind of started from there and then made that modular, which was cool. And so, yeah, I mean, after the hurricanes and moving back home, then I, you know, was doing some odd jobs here and there, but reached back out to Don and he was trying to electrify the kite boat. Right. And so, you know, went out there for 7 years and kind of just went to school. You know, that was almost like my master's degree, I'll call it, in engineering. Right. And just playing around with making, you know, I didn't really see much of the, you know, I just saw the prototype e-foil, but in terms of really understanding what it took to build one, you know, I didn't get that exposure there at Lift, but, you know, actually seeing, you know, a really DIY e-foil with like lipo batteries and, you know, sketchy 3D printed remotes, you know, that kind of start, like Dawn was kind of going off in that direction, you know, and doing different using hobby ESCs. And from there, they, you know, we really took a liking to the e-foil and the combination of what we were doing with the kite boat and that technology was really applicable to making e-foils as well. And so kind of going that route of being able to mass produce an electric foil there, and ironically working with a lot of different vendors that everybody is, you know, getting their foils made at. So kind of understanding really the ins and outs of what it takes to make product, right? So working with Cobra, getting our boards made, you know, being able to either potentially get wings made there or other, you know, foil components, and, you know, working with either China or this, you know, all these different places that you can go to.
Were you a partner in this Kai concept, or you were working?
No, I was just
with
a worker there.
Yeah.
I was just really passionate for it. You know, I did my internships a few summers, and, you know, kind of as the product grew from an R&D and development state to more of like a proper thing that we could, get out to the public. Yeah, I just kind of grew from there, and my role kind of grew, my responsibility grew, and yeah, it's kind of a fun story. Like, Don gave me all this opportunity. I was super young and kind of didn't, I didn't have the engineering degree. So when it was in like a development phase, like I didn't really, I had to kind of learn how to become useful with 3D printing and looking at design files. And as we started to get more things produced in a scalable way, that's where kind of, I guess, my schooling came into play and being able to work that avenue. And ironically, places where Chris was getting his foils made, we would get our foils made there as well, and kind of be able to just have all of this kind of insider knowledge in a sense, because all of the industry is kind of going to the same places in a sense. Right. So, kind of just having that peek into Pandora's box was pretty cool.
So where was kind of the end game with that development that you were doing with Don, right? Like you're saying you kind of got through this hobby phase. Where did you guys end up with the e-foil you guys were making? Yeah. Why am I not right?
I mean,
exactly.
so
why am I not riding a Kai Concept e-foil?
Right, a jet foiler. I mean, for us, in that project, like, so jet foiler, that's the name of the product, right? That's its own thing. And, there are some out there, it was more, we provided them for certain customers. But, it was more of a development. Like, that's what Kai Concepts is. Like, Kai Concepts is more of an R&D facility, which develops at a rapid pace and gets different technology, out to different
So you guys develop it and sell the tech off, or are you contracting with somebody to develop it for them?
Yeah, it's an interesting place. We collaborate with different projects, right? And anyway, it wasn't a commercially available thing. Like, it happened to be for some of the the investors, let's say, they appreciated the product, right? So, while we were making the kite boat electric and working on all these different things, we're also in parallel kind of, making these fun e-foils. And we were kind of building the, going from large scale, let's say surface control technology with all these different actuators and stuff like that. How can we do it at a smaller scale, right? Instead of, these large foiling boats that electric foiling boats that you see nowadays, how can you make like a personalized craft, right? And so, an e-foil battery is that size, and kind of working on that tech from there. So, it wasn't something that just went out to the masses. It was more like and our technology at that time when we had released it was like kind of the best thing you had out there. I mean, so we had this plug that stuck up from the mast, that you could latch, and you'd have your battery, which was your socket, and you'd latch onto it. And you have this handle latching mechanism, right? We had done this in 2017 or 2018, right? And I mean, now that's how Lyft is doing it, right? In 2025, right? So for its time, the product
everything's
was really
custom
advanced
and totally
not really
right,
scalable, right? It was super
e-foil.
expensive to make one. Yeah, right. It's like, if you could make an e-foil with no budget,
cool.
like this was it, right? But it was all for development's sake, trying different battery technology, trying different manufacturing methods, making, I think we tried 150 different layup styles for the mast. I mean, learning about all different carbons that are available and things that we can only get in the US versus what's available overseas, and kind of being able to say like, all right, well, we can make this wonderful, 11 millimeter thick or 12 millimeter thick mast in the US with, this crazy high end Mitsubishi carbon, but like, we can't achieve that anywhere else. Right. We were a small team of like 12 people. And so anyway, kind of, just like learning all the ins and outs of how a foil gets made.
Sounds expensive.
No, it is expensive to kind of develop in that sense. But, all of that technology built up into kind of what they're doing now. Like they're still busy with making electric boats, and having the personalized version is kind of like, the latest thing. But yeah, I mean, Don is just, for those that know Don, I mean, he's basically one of the initial, so he was an OG windsurfer. He was one of the main Nash designers back in the day for windsurfing, and kind of, as kiting grew in Maui, like he was kind of one of the first guys as well to help start scale it up and mass produce this, and going to Robbie and being like, Robbie, I'm telling you, we got to get into kiting. And, from there, like Don was kind of helping build the brand of Nash, and going to China and working with all of the vendors that, now everybody goes to. Right. And that was kind of the cool part of it all, was that, Don just had this Rolodex of clients that, through his experience, he just knew where we could go to and who could help us. And it was, just so insightful to
sounds
work
like we got to talk to Don.
Man, you got to get him on the podcast. I mean, I swear every summer I'd come back and he would have 7 different new foils that he was trying. Like, he is the ultimate mad scientist. Like he will tinker, forever. So,
that's
and
pretty
that
rad.
relentless, yeah. And that relentless passion too, to build new products. Like, we'd make something and it would be the latest and greatest. And, we would have tested it and been like, oh, we love it. And he goes out and rides it and he's like, it's good, but actually, and have a laundry list of things to make it even better. And that's kind of, that helped me, I guess, with my Olympic kite racing, just like never being, satisfied in a sense, and always trying to push even further.
So that kind of like brings something to my mind. I wanted to ask you guys, is like, I need a factory reset. Like, thinking about all this stuff that you were doing, and the sailing and this foiling that we're doing, it's a hobby, right? This industry, like, and things are getting better. Like, we're getting thinner mass, we're getting better carbon layups, we're getting stiffer stuff, like, and things are evolving. But I don't really think it's like, I think ours is just like a hobby. Like, I don't know if there's enough money in it to get it to where it actually can go. Like sailing and stuff, like shit, the things and the money and the materials that they're using and the engineers that they've got and the backing that they've got. Like, I think our surf industry is just, I mean, there's a lot going on, but I think there's a lot more to happen. Like, I don't think it's slowing down, Walt. Like, just talking like that, like, I mean, sure, you could make a $30,000 e-foil that's like out of this world. It's not consumer enough, right? But I think like the people that are in this, and the minds behind it, and the money and the technology of where it's going, and bigger boats and racing and like the sailing side, I think we're lucky to be tapping into this. Our foils are still very hobby.
Yeah, we're tapping into, look at the group of users, right? Like, a lot of people, I mean, foiling's got to get bigger, right? We need more people into foiling, and then they can support more brands, which supports bigger events and more serious racing and Olympic level things, and that drives real cash, right, to get thrown into R&D and stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting journey. But either way, we're set up. This is a group of obsessive, tweaky tinkerers who are chasing that dragon of what's the newest thing that I can be passionate about from a development standpoint, or for my own personal athletic journey, whatever. So, I mean, it's going to move faster than every other sport because of the user group, right? The user group is somebody who's going to be driving it forward. And I think that's why we've seen so much in 10 years. I mean, this sounds like 100 years worth of history in the sport that we've just covered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I think, you're going to always have people that are, even though it's like they're going out downwind foiling, or for example, you had Kane, and I don't know if it was in the M2M or the M2O, but he had, the custom double tapered, downwind foil. And it's like, you're going to have those people that are just on a tinker level that are like, I'm going to try and find the best carbon that I can, go to Mitsubishi or whatever it is, get the highest tensile strength. And, I want to make a 10 millimeter
10 millimeter
mass, but like you said, it's gonna take that
10 who wants a double digit
10 double digits. Yeah
no, sorry,
double digits, right? Yeah, I mean, who knows where it's gonna go in that sense, but I mean, yeah, absolutely, right? Like, I'm sure Chris is thinking, like, he's thinking all the time, oh, can can I make the section even thinner? Can I make it even more optimized? Right. And
I think it's time.
I'm going to chug a beer and do some burpees right about now.
Yeah.
I just like to compare it to that company, right? Is because of course these guys, like the racers that are, let's say the downwind racers, they're on the best of the best, right? And they're going to be on this gear that they're like pushing the development to its peak because they want peak performance, which then the company has to think if they're going to mass produce it to sell it to the end consumer. I'm like I don't know, it won't even make it. So the top athletes and these people and the designers are going to be riding some really cool shit that just might not make it out the back end to us. And that's why I think, the F4 thing.
You're going to be ripped though.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Is so hot is because they're a small company-ish, right? I mean, in relative terms, let's say they're not small at all, but they're able to turn around and be like, I think this is the best, and then turn it around and get a mold out and kind of produce it. And I think everyone's seeking what's the best. I don't know if like the consumer is ever going to get the best of the best. Like, how does it make it to us in a production line in a standpoint?
I think
right?
it's almost too hard, like at this, especially if you're like a larger established brand, like it's kind of too much of a risk, to go down that rabbit hole and be like, oh, let me make a mold of this and let me try and source this crazy expensive carbon. And, that's where somebody like, when you are a smaller brand, you're able to be dynamic. And then all of a sudden you create like, you have Mike's Lab, for example, that just makes this beautiful work of art, right? And his list of people that want a foil, I mean, especially for the racing days, it was like 300 people that wanted a foil from him, right? And it's
for one guy,
which is not a lot, but for one person, it's a lot.
And that's where when you have somebody like that, they're just able to make this beautiful work of art and do these construction styles that like nobody else, for the masses, you're not going to be able to do it, right? Using these crazy high density foam cores and using different specialized resin. It's just some things you can't ultimately export to these countries where you want to mass produce, right? So that's where you're almost limited. I think a brand like F1, they have a great design, and I think they're like almost the peak. There's a few other brands catching up in that sense, but when they first came out with like that clamp connection and using a scarf joint on the fuselage, like that was kind of the most commercial peak performance surf foil that you could get at the time, right? And I feel like that's always been, for a lot of other brands, that's kind of like the North Star, right? You see like Duotone has that clamp. I mean, Duotone has the clamp connection. Cabrina has the clamp connection. I mean, that's where everybody's going now. But, it started with these guys that were just making, Gucci product, and now it's slowly getting out there, right? But it's that big delay of working with your vendor. And kind of to throw another wrench in everything here, like I was also with a few of my buddies. We had started with my buddies Cody and Casey. We had started Indie Foil, which kind of at the beginning of COVID, we had this idea of like, we all love foil surfing. Wing foiling is slowly starting to get on the scene. We all have and Cody was working for Flightboard at the time, and he was their wing designer, their board designer. Casey was doing a bunch of R&D and different sailboat projects in Rhode Island, and we kind of just got together and started designing and making our own freeride foils, right? And kind of learning through the process of like, through people getting it and absolutely destroying it. It's like, oh, well, the optimization, we want to do this super, thin diameter fuselage and super thin foil section. And, people would be like, oh, I went out and I jumped it and I broke your mast in half. It's like, oh, okay. So kind of going through that whole phase of like, what can we design that's robust over time? And then what do people, are people just going to go and do one competition on or two competitions on for a season and then it's obsolete, right? But the concepts of what we learned from that were great, and maybe we can scale it up. But just to see like where it can be. I just know that, from the toy shop there and at Kai Concepts, like what can be done, like we're not even, there's still so much more development to be done, which is exciting.
Take it back to the eFoil thing. I mean, you were lucky to be able to be kind of at the epicenter of eFoil development, kind of watch it come to where it is today. And obviously, like in the last 2 years with Foil Drive, Foil Assist, Lift X, all the stuff, the whatever, the ultralight flight lab, and then amp board, whatever. I just named a bunch of stuff, right? Huge evolution. So yeah, what's your kind of take on where we are and where we're going with the sport? And yeah, like, are you foil assisting? Like, what's your jam?
Oh yeah. I'm a big time foil driver. Absolutely love the product. I think it's genius. I know. Yeah.
The lunchbox.
When I first saw the
like,
V1, I was just like, no way is this thing going to take off. I saw Gen 2 was just like, this is, and that's kind of, back in the day, that's where we started with the e-foils. Like, you just had this Pelican case with like 6 to 8 lipos in it. It was so sketchy, and it just like took you for an hour, which was awesome. Right. And now I'm like, and this was, I think the Gen 1 had come out like, 4 years or 3 years past that phase for us developing e-foils. And I was just like, oh wow, here we go again. Another brand that's just, making these custom, these sketchy Pelican cases with the lipos. And to see where it's at now, I mean, it's such a slick design. It's really, it's so universal. I think the price point is pretty comparable for the tech that goes into it, and it's insane. I mean, I think I would say, for everybody that has been asking about a foil drive or whatever, I just say there's, in the last 5 years, you have, I would say, the Parawing, which is a great, evolution for the wind sports industry or water sports industry. And then you have the foil drive, which just gives you all this different access. I mean, I've done a trip to Chicama and I've gone to Peru, and I know what that wave feels like. And to get a bomb out the back, and not everybody has that jet ski assist or, that friend that can go out there and spend 3 hours with you in the morning to kind of go on that novelty mission, right? But here you have this tool where, boom, I can just go by myself. I'm the jet ski driver and I'm the rider, and I have 40 minutes to an hour worth of fun. And just, I don't know, I found my foil level too.
Yeah, that ride time and the challenge. Yep.
To just go through the roof, and I think it's really cool, like, to see where it's going now. I feel it's a bummer, because I feel like I saw the Lift X come out and I was like, dude, are you kidding me? The integrated motor and how it's fared in, and the interchangeability. I was like, wow, this is game over. How can it get any better? And now, and I thought with the pod, I was like, all right, the pod isn't that big of a deal. Like, if I'm on a bomb, like, and I drop down, like, the drag isn't too bad in that sense. But, now with everybody coming out with an integrated mast, it's like that lure of like this new Gucci thing. I was just like, oh, man, like, I feel like they kind of stole his thunder in a sense. But no, it's crazy to see. And I feel like, I went to AWSI last year and I didn't get to go this year, but the biggest thing that I took away from AWSI this year was almost every brand kind of conforming to the foil drive system. Everybody wanting to have an integrated mast, everybody wanting to have a trench board. And that's where, there's just a product that's here to stay. When other brands are happy to accommodate your product, it's like a true testament of how valuable it is. I see more people coming on it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think about it all day and every day, about like the different uses, the different customers, the different products, and who it could be good for, who it's not. And I mean, when someone comes into the shop, they're like, hey, should I get a foil drive or a lift? I'm like here, like, my brain just like explodes with the amount of information that I think I should be telling them, which is just an overload. I don't, like, someone came into the shop the other day to ask questions about a foil, and it should have been as simple as me saying, you should get this foil. Here's a quote. 5 minutes later, but I got into like a 45-minute of explaining aspect ratio to someone that doesn't need to know it. So
go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. No. So I have these thoughts of like foil drive and the trench and like the integrated mass and stuff, and my brain hurts. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Right, so you've kind of watched this development. What do you think, looking at where the product is today? What are the biggest limiting factors in like its development? Right? Is it batteries? Right? Are we looking at weight? Is it just composites? Like, we need to, because I mean, obviously, like, there's still this kind of it's a well-built piece of equipment, but there's still somewhat of like a hobby nature to it, right? You got to pull out the electrical tape and tape the cord to your mast. There's a million bits and pieces. It doesn't have that like product engineering elegance. And then there's also like some physical components of like the materials they're using and the battery and the power that you have in it. So, how much of that is just we're kind of stuck with battery tech, and how much of it is like they're just going to have to dump more money into it?
Yeah, I feel like, in a sense of the battery, you have their new battery that Foil Drive just came out with, and I don't know how much heavier that is, but I'm sure it has to be substantially heavier. I don't know if they end up using like 21700 cells.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about the difference in like the battery, because I assume like my knowledge of batteries is pretty limited. I assume most people listening to this, they're the same.
My knowledge is pretty good.
How much is in the
plug
battery?
it in, and there's a percentage on it, so it's either like 50 or 60.
Yeah. I just need to go from that percentage. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Obviously, there's such a science around batteries, right? And the different cells that you can get. You can get lithium ion. You have the RC like RC drones, which is like a lipo lithium polymer. And then from within that kind of chemical mix up that you have different size capacity cells, right? So you have an 18650. So
what are like the little ones that make up the current battery packs for Foil Drive? Those are 18650s. Cool.
Those are 18650s, right?
Yeah.
So those almost look like those almost look like AA style batteries, right? It's 2 rows of them, basically. I don't know what they probably have. It's probably like an 8S 2P. There's a different configuration that you can
you're putting
do
them in series
of all
or whatever
of these
to build up
cells
the
to
voltage,
get a certain voltage,
amperage, yeah.
right?
Cool.
I'm sure, exactly. So, we were looking at using 21 because, right, obviously if you had no budget on making an e-foil, it would be like, all right, well, the next greatest thing is let's use 21700s. That's kind of the newest tech that we can use, and we can get a lighter pack, right? Like, because when you have a bigger cell, you can get more energy density within that pack, and you can use fewer cells, right? But the problem is the cells are so big and they carry so much energy that the risk of like a thermal runaway, for example, so if one of those catch on fire, I mean, we could do a whole podcast about battery safety, like from my aspect and me understanding how these batteries are built and like the safety form of it, like, it is scary. Like, these batteries are super powerful. They carry a lot of energy. A lot of people kind of just assume like, and Paul and all those guys.
So let me ask you a question then, Kai. If if batteries are so scary, you have a new baby, right? Yeah. You have a Foil Drive?
I sure do.
Do you keep your batteries in your house?
I do not practice good battery safety.
Okay.
At all.
So you feel comfortable enough with them? Like, should I be storing them in a barbecue?
I mean, look, to be honest, I'm looking at, so there's a company, Zarges, and Lyft got involved with them as well. And for a lot of the super yachts and stuff like that, you can buy this like military grade storage case, which, I mean, you should. I mean, look, there are plenty of stories on forums, whether it be a Wado battery that caught on fire, and look, it's not the company's fault.
I've heard a lot of Wados. Not to throw anybody under any bus.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to. There's a lot of different brands that have had scenarios.
But I'm on this huge Foil Drive Facebook chat. I see very little or none. Like, I don't know if there's been any crazy fire issues with the Foil Drive batteries, or maybe I'm not looking in the right place.
And to be fair, I haven't really seen or heard of any of those stories either.
There's got to be, though. God damn, they're just like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hate to say it, like, I think their product is incredible. The design is amazing, but like, you're using XT90 connectors, you're discharging at a pretty high rate. I mean, to use the thing like an e-foil, right? Like some people are doing, I know that there's a high, consumption, and you're pushing the extremity of those batteries, right? And so, having puffy having the puffy cell, or all of that stuff. I mean, for me, I'm pretty battery conscious on, how far I'm discharging it to, what I'm charging it to, kind of trying to track all the cycles and stuff like that. I just try and keep it as safe as possible, and not push it too hard to where I'm really kind of stressing the battery out. And if I am going to leave it for a while, try and have keep it at 50%, actually do the recommended stuff that they say, because those guys have probably had some scary scenarios and have learned oh, this is a good, operating voltage to keep it stored at. You shouldn't discharge it to 5% SOC, right? Like keep it in that 20% range, right? 20 to 30.
So you're not supposed to kill your battery?
So
I mean, no one does that. Come on. I'm out at the reef enjoying having the time of my life, and I'm like, I got 30. I still got 30.
And now their new pack, right? Like now they've realized oh, everybody's using these things like e-foils, to make it safer. Let's have a pack. I think their new battery has a battery management system in it.
Mm-hmm.
They have an app that tracks everything. I'm sure that's connected to a cloud system. They're able to get notifications you had a battery that got to 40 Celsius. They're probably going to want to reach out to that customer and say, hey, dude, what's going on? It's oh man, I just, I was charging it outside all day.
Totally.
It's all right, well, I'm sure they don't assume. Yeah. I mean, people do that, right? They just think oh, it's this, in the beginning, for example, I feel some of the marketing from Lyft was oh, our batteries were designed by Tesla engineers. And they were, and it was amazing. The tech was super futuristic, but I feel people hear that and it almost gives them an out in their head of oh, well, I can just abuse this thing, right? Oh, it's designed by geniuses. I can do whatever I want with it. But that's absolutely not the case. I think the statistics are one in 1 million cells will explode no matter what. It's just production and how things go. And that's scary. And there's ways when you're producing packs, you can check the voltage of each cell to make sure everything's conforming, right? You want a battery pack where all of the cells are somewhat within the same voltage range. There's impedance testings that you can do. There are things that you can do to find bad cells within a pack of 100 and get rid of them and kind of have that fallout threshold. But, also it's up to the consumer to just be smart, right? And, I've realized at my house, for example, I have an electric lawnmower and I have, I have some jet foilers and I have a foil drive. And I'm okay, I'm at a point now where I think I need a Zarges case or some proper storage thing, to actually keep it safe. So
yeah, I didn't even think about that. We're talking about our hobby and our batteries, but I mean, everything's going electric, right? And cordless. So you've got all the I've got power drills sitting in my daughter's dresser.
No, I mean, you just kind of take it for granted. It's just these commercial things that you buy all the time, and you're just oh, of course it's safe. But there's just funny.
I mean, the foil drive batteries we use them pretty intense. We are blasting that shit from 100% to 0 pretty quick with a lot of output, and then charging it again and do it yeah, they must have a crazy quality control, because the amount of batteries that they've been selling and shipping out, and the amount of stories I've heard, slim to none, it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I mean, and they're making, I think I'm pretty, it's funny because you look at the batteries and they're kind of I would loosely say in the beginning, oh, these are probably made in China. But from their video and their documentary that I saw, they're doing a lot. It looks like they're doing a lot of the production in-house. Right. Yeah. So I'm sure they've invested in plenty of,
It's the biggest risk they have as a company, probably, is their batteries. Right. So if as a company, you've got to be mitigating that, because if you had a 2% failure rate for a week, I mean, that would just blow up the company. Right. So they've got to be all on top of that, because, I mean, that's going to make or break the future of their business.
That's funny that you think that's the highest risk. I mean, having an open propeller in the water while you're surfing it, pretty high risk too.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's
what a risky company to get into. Let's make these batteries and strap them into a marine scenario and put a propeller on a surfboard on a sharp knife. Mm-hmm. What the hell are we doing?
But then you have a product like a one wheel, right? Where, I mean, I've heard some horror stories.
Oh yeah, that's pretty insane.
One wheel in the beginning, where
Like, yeah, dude. Or where it just shut off in the middle of a full speed run at 20 miles an hour and you just nosedive it.
It just shuts off. Right. Exactly. I mean, I've heard of,
but I still bought 3 more.
I mean, it's the product is so cool, right? And it was futuristic. Like when it first came out, like, exactly. Of course, right?
I still have one. Yeah.
And you ask, like, how is somebody like this still in business? You know, you kind of just pioneer and push through those scenarios. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to go into it because, you know, that was the future, is like, oh, how can you make this more condensed version of this e-foil? And like, you know, with the e-foil, you would use like a folding propeller. Like when Nick first came out with a folding propeller, it was just like, oh my gosh, now I can go way out the back, catch this bomb, but you still had the weight problem, right? And then now it comes in foil drive where you have this Gucci condensed, like, you know, not as heavy, and it feels like a surf foil and has the power of an e-foil. You know, it doesn't have the runtime, but you know, it still comes with kind of all the safety features that you kind of need to keep up with. And yeah, I mean, it's ballsy to go into that business. I mean, you know, you assume like kiting and winging and surf foiling, like, you know, it all has the warning labels on it, right? Oh, the sport's dangerous. And it's like, you know, you may hurt yourself, right? But like you said, there's so many moving pieces with the electric assist, and you're kind of relying on the consumer to, like, I don't know, assemble it properly, like do the connections correctly, actually put the battery grease on, you know, make sure my O-ring's not chipped. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's this level, you know, and a lot of people are smart and have an engineer mindset where they are looking at things, but also you have a lot of consumers that are just like, I bought this expensive thing. It needs to last. It needs to do what it's supposed to, right? I saw it in the video.
Yeah,
but,
well, we've had this conversation.
To those
a bunch.
people,
It's
I'd
like,
say
what
get a
equipment's
Lift
for the
X.
right people. You know, if you're really nerdy into your gear, foil drive,
right,
it's going to force you to really get engaged with the equipment because you've got 26 little screws, and it's, you know what I mean? You have to understand it to put it together, right? And then I think that helps you better understand the risk. Whereas, yeah, I mean, the Lift X is just plug and play. Right. I mean, anybody could grab it and figure it out with like no instruction, would be able to put it together, get in the water, and probably figure it out because it's so intuitive.
Dude, people do not read instructions.
Do any of us?
Exactly.
At all.
It's crazy.
Like, no, I also don't. But at least when I have a silly question, I don't go on like I'll figure it out, or I will go to the manual if I can't figure it out, right? But the amount of questions you get, you're like, I can't, you know, somebody asks a silly question, you're like, damn, dude, like, you didn't read the instruction manual at all. Like, how do you expect to use this product? I can't
even lie. Like, in the beginning with the foil drive, when I was putting it together, I was like, oh, I've built e-foils before. I know what I'm doing. And I'm like 30 minutes into assembling the thing. I'm like, dude, what am I doing wrong here? Why is this, you know, why is the pod so hard to fix? Oh, right. I need the rubber shim and I need anyway. Oof. Yeah. So even for me, like, I should be going over the instructions, and yeah, but it's one of those products where like you can't shortcut it, right? You really need to understand, like, yeah, it's a high powered tool, and, you know, I should understand how to store it. I should educate myself on all of that safety. And I feel like, you know, with the new foil drive battery, they've gone in that direction because I think, you know, they want this to be the new e-foil in a sense, right? Like, instead of, you know, spending $12,000, $10,000 on a setup, you know, you have all of these different boards that you're already getting for a wing foiling center, and you have, you know, 2 to 3 $7,000 or, you know, $8,000 kits that are now e-foils, you know, with smart batteries, and are pretty easy to keep up with and to maintain.
Yeah. I think I was surprised at the amount. When I first saw the Fusion, I was thinking, yeah, you know, who is this for? Is it really going to take off? And yeah, I'm surprised that the people that already have Maxes want to upgrade to the Fusion even. And then people that want to get into assist, it's not really, I was thinking, oh man, how many people are actually going to buy this if they want an e-foil? Because maybe it's not the simplest solution for a straight up just an e-foiler. Like, if someone comes into my shop and says, I want an e-foil, I don't know if I put it all together. Is it necessarily cheaper than an e-foil? You know, if you cross use it, yes. But if I'm strictly talking about an e-foil purpose use, I was like, I don't know if this fusion's going to take off. But it's totally an assist.
So you
plus.
see it more like a lift X than an e-foil, because I mean, isn't it? It is a little lighter, right? And I think that's kind of, and it doesn't have as much power, so that's kind of where it's meeting. It's like you kind of already. It's a perceived value, right? Like, because you're not buying the board and maybe you already have the foil, even though the end spend on the equipment is kind of the same, like it feels like it's a better fit for you. And I think that's the easy entrance, because you're like, well, I got this big out of date wing board that I learned on 2 years ago.
Yeah.
If I put this on it now, I've got an e-foil, right? So, I mean, I get how people are getting into it. It's just going to be, the performance is going to be the driver of like how, is anybody going to use it for anything other than e-foil? Like, would we go out and send it on it? I haven't tried it yet. I'm stoked to try it.
That's what I'm saying. They are like, that's what people are buying it for. That it's got more power. It's smarter. It's
How
the
much
battery
heavier is it?
It's I don't know. You should read the instruction manual. I don't know.
This is not Dylan the retail shop owner. Yeah, 4 pounds. That sounds right.
I think it's 4 pounds. Yeah, I think it's like 4 pounds or 5 pounds heavier. But it needs to be heavier because it's got more power.
Well, of course, it's heavier. I think it's all about that thing we learned with the foil assist in general, which was like, okay, it's about where the weight's placed and then how you tune into that weight, and that's what affects your surf sessions, right? As you start going to that, I mean, everybody's heard a million podcasts on foil driving at this point, but the biggest challenge is like transitioning from powered to unpowered, right? And then like having that moment where you feel intuitive enough where it feels like free surf and you're not like driving this dump truck around, right? And I think the weights that place is 4 pounds enough to throw that balance off, probably relative to your size. Again, this is a sport. The bigger you are, the less all the gear is in proportion to your weight, and maybe the easier it is to manage. I don't know. I'm excited to try it because it would be nice to have an extra half hour and a little bit more power. You can use it with the high prop, that fusion setup. Yeah, because it's just the battery pack of the computer, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's... I mean, it's like, it's exactly...
Yeah, I've seen it.
Walt, it's like a Max, just bigger and more powerful. Like, think of it like that, right? It's no different. They're able to kind of attack the e-foil market because it does have more power and more runtime, but essentially people are just buying it as a more powerful, longer lasting assist. And you gotta think about the
performance level too, right? If you're just getting in and you're going straight, dude, like totally, why would you not have the extra power, right? I think maybe when you start getting on super small boards and you're trying to like rip really hard, top turns and stuff, which the sport's kind of gone that way too. I'm sure you're going to want it to be lighter, but that's really cool.
Yeah. So remember when I was talking that I set up for one of my e-foils and I used the old motor and a 2-blade prop? Someone hit up in the comments that it was the 2-blade prop that was the issue. Ben from Foil Drive said that, in fact, it was really designed for the high power motor because it's got a higher output. It's got more voltage as well. Like, it was not made for the non-high powered motor. Like, if you want to get what it's going to give it to you and the efficiency, it's from with the high power motor. So just to clarify that for everybody, that I wasn't just silly. It's true.
It's cool to see like for example, where the fusion is and kind of that form factor that they've come up with. Like, I'm sure the feeling of it is, is it a little heavier? It is. But is it like an e-foil? No, not, it has all of that power and those characteristics, but it, surfing on an e-foil is really tough. Like, it is a tanker barge. Like, Nick has refined the Lift X to be this like, when I first saw the video of it, I'm like, dude, this thing is unreal. Like, that is the dream. Like, that's what everybody, once you get competent on an e-foil and you are kind of getting into the waves, like, that is the ideal setup that you really want. And kind of in the beginning, seeing like the development of like going on a Lift 170 or a Lift 200, like when I had just gotten into proning and foil surfing at shacks where you're not just on this crumbly wave. And like, I always talk about your like pump to glide ratio, right? Like, how much are you pumping versus how much are you actually like gliding and surfing, and being able to, have that feel there and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to just keep pumping. Like, I can actually surf these waves, and chasing that, and then seeing the e-foil where you get the folding prop and you're like, wow, I can go on these, testing in Maui, going out to Spartans, getting on these bombs out the back there, and, getting that snowboard flow in a sense, and then kind of always chasing that foil surfing right? But always just kind of being like, man, like I always catch myself pumping more. Like if when I was in Long Beach and going to Seal Beach there, right? Like the foil shop guys, like they have a great setup there. That place is an awesome conveyor belt to learn and to ride, but I don't feel like you're getting that flow. And now all of a sudden you have this product and going to Chicama and experiencing that and getting the true powder runs there and being like, oh my gosh, this is unreal. And now this product of just like, here you are, you can go out the back at your home spot. Like I just tell people, like, I bring Chicama everywhere with me, even if it's 0 to 1, like I'll just, have the right wing size and go out the back and catch this awesome wave and rip like 5 turns and be like, there's no way I was proning into this thing. And some people are like, oh, you're lazy, you need to paddle, but it's more about, for me, what I'm looking for in my session, which, like, I want to be turning, I want to be surfing. If I want to get an exercise,
go do a downwind run,
test my cardio, maybe I should go to the gym or something. Like, I appreciate all the dock pumping and everything. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, and I've appreciated getting into some para-winging. Like I kind of was knocking on downwinding a little bit because I was like, dude, you're just pumping going straight, right? But now, I mean, I see some of the videos and these guys are just like,
you will understand. You will come to understand. Yeah, I think it's inevitable. Like everybody kind of looked at downwind and be like, why am I doing this? This looks terrible and really hard. And then you start doing it and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah, like Arlen's the best example. I mean, 2 years of me and Dylan losing our fucking minds about downwinding, and this guy is just like, what are one of our best surfing friends, and like rips, and we're like, dude, you're gonna kill it. Does he pump forever? Super good for it, and pumps for days, and reads waves well. Like he just does not know how to suffer. He just does not know how to go through sucking at something. So until the Parawing came out, he just completely avoided downwinding.
Well, he didn't get it. Because and that's what he said, right? He'd get up on foil and he's like, all I'm doing is pumping and riding straight. Like, why would I want to do that for 20 miles? But now all it is like, I get to surf a wave for 20 miles. Like,
right.
Like,
right.
It is the coolest thing ever.
Right.
Downwinding is the coolest thing ever. That's what foils were made for.
And having some of those novelty missions as well. It's like you feel like Christopher Columbus back in the day. Like, I'm just going to go and send it, right? Like you're going on this like pioneering mission.
I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's been cool. Look, just to see how all the toys have come to what they are now, right? I mean, it's just crazy. Like I never would have thought like, oh, I'm just going to buy this like tight e-foil setup, or like even some of the foils that are out there now. It's just mind blowing what people are making. So yeah,
Punch too.
And we're not even close.
The progression you saw in your foiling once you started foil assisting, and the conversation about like, yeah, well, it was great when I was proning, but I'm catching the last 25% of the wave, and maybe I'm making one turn, but then I've got to kick out and pump back. And did I get far enough back? Did I have enough juice? Whereas all of a sudden, you're getting like 75% more ride time, and that snowboarding feeling you're talking about when you can get way out back. The feeling you get when you're towing or whatever that foil assist gives you. I think people have just got to stop trying to judge foil driving and foil assisting as prone surfing from some egotistical stand set. They're just different things. I mean, like, you can't compare these things. Like, they're both epic in different ways, and like to try and say one's like a half-ass version of the other is like, you're just kind of missing the point.
Well, it's because in foil surfing you've got to be pretty good, right? You're a surfer, you got to duck dive, you got to catch the wave, you got to pop up. So it's like, there's a certain type of athlete and this like surfer s to it. Right. And then when someone looks at a foil drive, you're like, anybody from 104 years old to 9 can get on a foil drive. So there's a lot of association of this. There's, a certain kookiness to some people that ride an e-foil or a foil drive. And I think that's where it comes from, right? They're like, well, you're on this. I've seen these people on it. They're wearing, a life jacket and a helmet and a knife and a whistle. And they're standing like this, and you're like, yeah, of course, because, everybody's aunt, grandma, and brother's son-in-law can foil drive eventually, right? But the way that most of us are using it and like how badass it is.
Well, no, it's what held it back in the early days was the lunchbox on the deck and the old guy who was just cruising around the back of the lineup. And you were like, well, this doesn't look cool.
Yeah.
And then you saw a clip of Paul
Not being-
Cooper hucking
not-
in air
not
and
looking-
like smashing
not
it.
looking
and you're
cool.
Like, oh, that's what a foil drive can do on a 34 liter board or whatever. And yeah, I mean that was what, 2 years ago, and not even really.
And I can't even lie. I was
Oh,
one of
me
those
too.
core guys that I was like, before I got my foil drive, I was like, no way, I prone, I paddle. And then of course our buddy Eric had gotten a foil drive, and he was like, I was like, dude, this guy is catching these bombs out the back. Like if like I had known how I would ride in Chicama and stuff. And I was like, man, if I could just actually get on the wave that much earlier, like I would actually have a great wave to surf. And of course the comment is like, oh, we'll pump further,
I don't want to, dude. I want to be riding my fucking 700, dude. Like I don't want to be on some big goofy foil. I want to be down and I want to rip turns, right? Like totally. Yeah, it's like I don't want to pump back on an 1100.
Right.
I mean,
That's what we're here
dude, there's
for.
so
damn
many
it.
arguments to this. Like you could go on, right?
It was funny telling my buddies when I first got my foil drive, like it was almost like coming out of the closet. It was like, all my buddies that were like proning, I was like, everybody's texting me like, yo, let's get a session in. I'm like, oh, let's do it. And then I show up to the beach and I got a foil drive, and they're
They're
just
like,
like,
no, dude, it's cool, man. I swear.
Well, I
foil
mean,
drive, like you switch
it
up.
does-
And I was just like, no.
it's almost like you've got to have enough budget to be able to buy two of them so you don't leave your friends in the dust, right? Because it's true. Guilty. Arlen hits me up. He's like, yo, let's go to La Ocho and prone. And I'm like, no, it sounds like a lot of work. Like I've got to paddle into waves and maybe scratch my foil and be around a bunch of surfers that are taking the good waves. And, I'm scary. So I've got to stay away because of etiquette. I'm just going to walk down the block, motor a mile offshore, and have a epic session by myself.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just ultimately what you're,
So
you
you end up like, yeah, maybe leaving your friends, like that. I do enjoy that, like, that paddle time, sitting in the waves and hanging up. But dude, I've got 2 kids and a full-time job. Like I don't have time to just sit in the waves and chit chat for an hour and a half and catch 3 waves. I want to go and e-foil around for 45 minutes, and catch as many waves as I can and then e-foil back. Like I love how in the beginning it's like, yeah, I'm just going to use the motor. I just use the motor to get up, like I'm just using it as an assist. But really, now we're like flat water starting
there was
it,
so much pride
out
in the
to
early
the
days.
set, turning. Like you'd like, there's not one moment like there's, yeah, you're like, oh, I'll wait for the wave. I'll just motor over quietly,
like
on just to assist myself to catch this wave, and then I'll pump a little bit, and then now I'm like, no way, dude. I am on foil for as long as that battery lasts. That is it. Like brah, on the wave, brah, on the wave, brah. Like sometimes I go out and I look at my watch, and it was like, maybe I fell a couple times, but it's like one wave, for 40 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm just like nonstop motoring around. Like it is insane.
Randy out there with the paddle, with his foil drive controller on it, and all of us like, paddling all the way, being very cautious. And now we kick out, it's just like full hippo
Being very
fart all the way to the
cautious.
back. Yeah, it's great. Because at the end of the day, back to your progression, it's like, man, I got 45 minutes. I want to go surf as much as I can in that 45-minute window. And I think that's why we like foiling, is we like the foil time. And I think once you start getting addicted to that, it's really hard. You go out proning and you're like, dude, I'm bored. I don't want to sit here for 2 hours, and not catch waves. And even though it's such an amazing discipline, I think that's just about the time you have. When I'm downwinding, I'm on foil the whole time. When I'm foil driving, I'm on foil the whole time. When I'm towing, I'm engaged one way or the other. And so I think it's just you get kind of sucked into those things that are giving you the most, and I think foil drive just gives you the most bang for your buck. So that's why we end up doing it.
It's funny too, like with some of those buddies, like up in Cocoa Beach there, like the guys that are still hardcore proning, like I would, we'd talk and, oh, we're going to go, they would all go to one spot. And I was kind of like, I'm going to go to a different area, and just maybe the timing didn't work out. And I didn't get to see how their session was. And like, the forecast would be like 1 to 2, super dismal. Right. And I'd go out with my foil drive, have an absolute blast, have the 45 minutes of just catching wave after wave after wave after wave. And I'd leave the water being like, man, that was an insane session. That was so much fun. And then I'd look at my group chat and my prone buddies would be like, damn, that sucked. Like there was nothing, like I didn't catch any, that was kind of boring. Like what a pump fest. Like, that kind of sucked. And I'm just like, here is this tool. Like, sure, is it a cheat code? Absolutely. I'm not afraid to admit that. But like what I'm getting out of it with the limited time that I do have, it's like, this is a blast. And I can get so many more reps, in one 45-minute session than, and some of the guys that are these crazy, foil surfers, like they're going out every single day. They're at these niche locations that are just like perfect, almost perfect waves every day. And like for a 45-minute session, wherever you are, you can kind of make the most out of it, which is, it's just another tool.
Well, we're extremely fortunate that we can afford such a beautiful toy as well. Like that is
Yes.
that is a pricey tool, to catch a lot of waves. But reality, some like people come into the shop and they can still hardly afford just a board and a foil, right? So I'm so glad that I have a foil drive, and I'm fortunate enough to have one, because it just gives me so much more time on the water. And that's in every sport, right?
And I see so many people too, like you look at Hood River, like you just see the access that other people are getting, that like, maybe the the barrier to entry to actually like doing a pop-up on your paddle, or like, maybe the parawing is just like too much on your shoulders or whatever it is. Like you don't want to injure yourself in that sense. And here you can just do laps right at the hatch, like all day. And you're kind of, you're riding how like, the pros are in a sense. Right. And doing this like super like novelty experience where like you can just pop up and now you're getting that powder run that you're looking for. Like I would do a lot better maybe because I could pump better. I understood like the buffet or the stall point of a foil. Like there's just these dynamics that you pick up, free riding and foil surfing, and you don't have this lift and this thing that is giving you extra balance like with a kite. And there's just so many crossovers, like it just really, helps your style. I feel like, being able to just
and time, like he was saying, without a kite, without a wing, without a paddle, I mean, without anything in your hand. I mean, all those things play a role in like kind of this, they give you a sense of balance and something to work off of. And I think when you can really tune into like what just the board and the foil are doing, all of a sudden when you hop back on your wing or whatever, you feel this just next level in your efficiency and like how you're performing in that session. I just think we always say, if you are stoked to become the best foiler you can be, you should own a foil assist. It should be in your repertoire, because that's going to be like one of your best tools to improve your foiling. Not only because of like time on foil, because it's like training with a weight vest. It's like a weighted surfboard that gives you a ton of time on foil. And then, eventually you tune into it where it just feels almost as natural as, I guess we get used to riding a lot of different gear, right? Like we ride 8-9 foot boards, we ride 3 foot boards, we ride, 80 liters and 30 liters. So I think as a foiler and a water sports person right now, you get used to a lot of different stuff. But I mean, I think either way, that tool is like, it's just so cool to see the e-foil birth this thing that is so surf applicable, because nobody looked at it e-foil like you were going to be able to surf it. Even seeing Nick and those guys doing what they were doing, it was just like the moment you got on one, it was a dump truck. And now we're riding these things that, I mean, you don't even know what, like who's foil driving Jaws this year, right? Or like whatever, like that shit's going to happen because this is the tool to get you into those places potentially, right?
Yeah. I told you, Walt, right, the other day. I mean, we were going to have a conversation about this anyway, but I just want to mention it now that I had I did a lesson with a guy with Lift X, and we both took out Lift X, and I was like training him how to ride, downwind swell and kind of like get, like extensional glides and try to read the bumps or whatever. And we both took Lift X's with the low prop. And man, I was like on the inside of the bay, I was blown away with that low prop and how I was able to let off throttle and still glide.
They did a great job with
it. Like I was like, there's just no, like, I got to take my foil drive with him. And I was like, wow, of course there's drag and stuff. And there's like a little bit of like a braking moment, because you know how you ollie up and you're like, okay, you have to shift your weight because you're not on motor and thrust. It's different because it's still in the water. So you kind of like, you let off and it kind of breaks you for a second. It takes off the thrust, but also you get this, when you dip the pot, it feels like, it's like, you feel this like, so it feels like that. It's like right away because it's in the water, and then you kind of tune to it and that's it. And I was blown away by how I could ride that 150X whatever, and how long it was in a bay run, and just like pump all the way from the reef
when
back
Nick
to
let
the
me
hotel.
try it, I mean, that was hands down the thing I was most impressed with, was because I had been riding the foil drive so much at that point, and he let me try the high prop first and then the low prop, which the low prop with the tiny board is very challenging to start on. But either way, like, man, that low prop, I was absolutely, and I freaked out about it. I was like, this is the future, man. Like, getting this kind of drag when you enter the water, and even with the high prop, like the impact it has in your flow, in your feeling of surfing when it touches down, versus like the bolt-on pod that we're all using for foil drive, was pretty different in how much drag it was. And a lot of that was like the diameter of the motor itself. I'm sure you know this, Kai, like I can't remember the numbers, but it's definitely thinner and longer. I wonder when we're going to get to that. I always look at that with foil drive being like, oh, I just can't wait till they position a longer, thinner motor, find better ways to decrease drag. But a lot of this comes around these new pods and integrated mass and stuff too, right? Like, is that in my head? How much is that? Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have to do a whole podcast.
No, I think you're right. I mean, look, it's like, unfortunately, I feel like those guys are maybe at a bit of a design constraint where, you know, you have your rotor and your stator, and you need a specific diameter to really achieve the torque that you're looking for. And as you reduce the diameter, you need a longer motor. And then obviously for them, it's like, all right, well, what does your form factor kind of want to be? And for them, it's like, all right, well, we want something that's like not hanging out the back as much. And now all of a sudden you're seeing a lot of brands kind of adopt that integrated mast feature. So, okay, well, that was a major leap. Can we make it even sleeker? Right. And then it's going to be, all right, well, we have to have, a little longer motor. And, unfortunately, I feel like with that though, how they have an outrunner, you're going to have an issue with the bearings. And so I feel like, there's a few different things that are kind of driving that constraint. I'm sure for them, it's nice to have, the shorter shaft where you don't have any eccentric run out and it's like wobbling in the center and wanting to break those ceramic bearings, right? Like you want something that is kind of short and is going to have good longevity. So you're not just running through, new stators all the time. And so I'm sure they've tested all that. I mean, Paul and Ben are freaking geniuses, right? They have so much experience with drones and kind of those motors that I'm sure they've tested all different form factors and found that like this lasts the longest and offers the best torque. It's like their product is maybe, I don't want to say it's at its peak, because of course it can always get better, but like it's at this elevated state where it's very robust and works really well. So it's like, brands, how can you help adopt to, making it even better and making your foils and your mass feel even more sleek, right?
That's right. Well, and then having like a jet propulsion system versus a prop propulsion, that's like a lot of constraints there from looking at like how people have tried to design it, is like, where do you put it, right? Like you've got the fuselage, that's really your only place. Like you don't have enough room. There's not enough room in the mast to put like a jet motor, really, right? Or to have an impeller that would work in that way. But that's got to be like the safer next step to the sport, right? Is getting away from a 3-blade spinning prop and having something that's a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a big task for somebody to overcome at some point. Is that like is it like physically not possible because of the space constraints? Is that why nobody's doing it?
Yeah, and I mean also, like, for example, when you're taking off and the use function of it, like with an e-foil.
I love how we're asking Kai these questions. This is awesome.
When you use like, it's awesome. Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's like I got a master's degree. I
want Kai to be an unofficial co-host too. I like this guy.
Like when we need somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, we'll get Kai to come on. Is that what you're saying?
It's too funny. I mean, it's fun developing all this stuff. And, obviously at Jetfoiler, like that was kind of our thing. Like we were using a jet in a sense, but, it wasn't a jet kind of like a jet ski, right? It's not like that, right? Ultimately it's hard to get that torque and that thrust that you need for the initial takeoff. Like once you're actually foiling and riding, those kind of setups are very efficient and they could work, but you're never like, ultimately you're going to use so much energy just trying to take off that you'll never kind of get away from that propeller feature. Right. And it's more, isn't
a jet a propeller anyway? It's just
it
internal.
Is exactly. It is in theory. Absolutely. You have some spinning propeller and it has a lot more blades than a traditional propeller, and they're at a different angle of attack, and you have kind of like
we need it to be like a
special housing.
we need it like a rocket
You
ship.
just want to like straight rocket.
Jet fuel, fire explosions. That would be safer. Yeah, just a straight rocket. How would that work underwater?
We need a 5-blade prop.
Because that's all the torque, right? Yeah.
We were playing all with that stuff, 6 blades, 5 blade, 4 blade, 3 blade. I mean, exactly, your torque and your efficiency and kind of tuning that in to what your use case ultimately is, right? And so it's kind of like for an e-foil, it's like, okay, I want something with good torque, not too much torque, but I also want it to be really efficient, so that way I get a good runtime out of it, and then with the foil drive, it's like, well, this is just an assist, so I want something that has high torque, gets me up and gets me going quick, and then I'm on the wave and I kind of throttle off, right? But now we're kind of using it. I wouldn't be surprised if those guys end up coming out with like another kind of blade configuration, propeller configuration for the Fusion, if more people are using it as an e-foil. Like, I don't know, it sounds like the runtime is quite a bit longer than like a max or a high power max setup, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the next evolution for them, is like, we're going to keep the folding feature, but we're going to do something that's a little more efficient.
I wonder how deep these guys actually go into testing something like that. Like, is it because I know that they've got these, everyone's talking about these blue props or whatever. They're bigger or who knows what they are, but Foil Drive's coming out with some different props that are like an upgrade. Is it all based on feel, or are they going out there and they're running 5 different prop systems and they're looking at how much power output it's giving, how much speed they're getting from it, and how much runtime they get, and how much battery they're burning, versus is it just a feel thrust thing? I wonder, like, that would be something good to ask Foil Drive. It'd be like, do you really think like they're more efficient, or do you just feel like they're more efficient? Because there's a lot of parameters that you could test if you want to get really into the nitty gritty, right, Kai?
With the new batteries, and they have the BMS, right?
Yes, yeah, of course. That's what it's for. It's for testing all of these things.
And you get all the data. So
yeah, look, everything can get
Data's
more efficient.
important.
I think that's. I mean,
read the manual.
Seen the fucking
Tech
prop
out.
blades and our foils, right? Like there's sections to everything, and everything can get more efficient. And I think it's funny that because we didn't really understand, I guess, because none of us really think about it, but it comes with a 2-blade prop, and then we all started putting the 3-blade prop on it. And you kind of go like, well, why the fuck is there a 2-blade prop, anyways? Because the thing just doesn't work near as well with the 2-blade prop, right? I mean, you just experienced that trying to use the 2-blade the other day with the Fusion, right? You could barely get out of the water with the thing. Yeah, you double fucked yourself.
Well, yeah, but it was a double, because it was like no high powered motor and it was a 2-blade. But there is something to it. I don't know what it is, but I guess the 2-blade has more cavitation, but it's faster.
You don't have as much torque,
right?
On the
So
low end,
you can go
That's
faster
exactly
with it, but you don't have as much thrust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's spinning. It's spinning more, which ends up it wants to cavitate easier, right? So then you add the 3-blade, you add an extra bit of grip, and you're not maybe you're not spinning as quickly, but you're having
your
better bite in the water,
like
and that's creating more torque. So yeah,
the hippo fart comes down about 60%. Yeah, way less flashlights.
There's a lot of less
with the 3-blade. Which, dude, I mean, it's so annoying, right? Like, it's one of the most annoying parts of Foil Drive is that fucking sound that is just totally ruining the vibe when you kick out and you're trying to send it to the back. It's just this like blur, 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 all the way. You're in it, dude. You are one with the ocean and the wave, and then you kick out and it's just like all the way to the back. I can't wait till that goes away so you can just be like so tuned in. I guess I should start pumping more.
I mean, you need the exact right size cable, positioning, and you need a trench board, and you'll just keep it in the water, and you will never, I mean, that's not. I don't think that's something Foil Drive can fix. That's like a user error.
Mm-hmm.
not keeping the prop in the water.
yeah.
I'm always trying to like keep it in as much as possible because I just know I'm like, dude, this is so embarrassing. Like going past people.
I put my cable so short. There's
the
just
whole
like,
time I'm just like,
are you on an integrated mast?
Right, by having that super short cable, but it's almost impossible. Again, I'm not on a trench, so I've got the computer or the battery pack that you hit. It's really tough. It's really tough because you're trying to like fuse that performance. I mean, when you only have 4 inches or 6 inches from that battery pack, like there's nothing you can do. You're going to be out of the water.
I don't feel like anybody actually talks about this. We talk about cable and where it should be and positioning and what's the best, but everyone talks about it because of the pod dipping. No one actually talks about it because of the hippo farting. And I think it's an important
when I first got my setup, obviously you first get your setup, you have the 20. And I was looking at, I was like, all right, this is way too long. Let me, like, where should I shorten it to? And then I was like, ooh, let me slam it. Let me use the 12 and let me slam it. And then I was kind of like, actually, I'm just going to, I'd go out on a windier day and the chop would be pretty big. I'm like, actually, I kind of need a little bit of ride height. So like, there's a little bit of forgiveness. Yeah. That for me, at least the 15 was like the sweet spot of like, I'm not dipping the pod all the time, but also like, I'm not exposing the prop 24/7. So if it's not buttery, right?
So you're on an integrated. So what is that at? 18?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't have a trench board, so it's like I have the pack plus whatever. So I think it's at like 18.
Yeah, I'm just a dummy. I just like put it down to the 12 and then I just force myself to keep using it instead of like being like, oh, this would be better if I changed it. I just like make it work for a whole year, and then realize I'm probably doing it wrong. So yeah, maybe I need to change it up this season.
Right.
Yeah. You and I are very similar that way. Just fucking make it work.
That sounds like me.
The surfing feels great. I've
make it work.
I've got plenty of mast.
You're like, I mean, right now you're coming in. We're coming to the new year here, and I've got no F4 foils for myself, so I'm just gonna make it work.
I was telling Chris, I was like, dude, you got to make an integrated mast. And he's like, oh really?
God.
Oh, I'm glad you put that on him. I haven't brought that up to him yet, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that he would jump on that. I mean, he loves an excuse to design something. We'll both order one. Have you tried?
Yeah.
Have you tried the F4 foils much, Kai? Have you tried the Manta or any of that stuff? Or
yeah, right when winging came around, that was kind of like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna use the F4 windsurf foil because they were like, that's what everybody was using at Chrissy, and so I was like, yeah, why not use that? And it was amazing. But then I just see like now, like with the wing foil racing, I mean, it's so funny, like to carry the performance that he has in all different aspects, like not just like the free ride and downwinding, but like,
I mean, they're winning and podium on wing foil racing.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's insane. Like to be able to solve that, right?
Yeah,
to mass produce stuff like that at scale is like really hard. Like even in kite foil racing nowadays, like you have 2 brands, you have Chubanga and you have Levitas. And Chubanga is kind of like a Mike's Lab situation. You have this guy, Luca, in Italy, who basically makes all of them, gives the final blessing, and ships them out, right? And then Levitas is, a side brand of, I think it's Geislinger and Co., and they make like large diesel machine vibration like coupling dampeners, if I'm not mistaken, and they make like composite helicopter parts and stuff like that. So they do this like crazy high performance stuff, and so it's like, oh, on the side, let's make foils as well. And so of course they can make this like crazy Gucci.
Well, yeah, but they're like $10,000, aren't they?
But we're so close.
It's an arm and a leg to get one of these things.
Yeah, so close to this. The surf side and downwinding being at that place where people will drop $10,000 on a foil, though. I mean, like you go to Hawaii, you go to Maui, and you see like even just the regulars there, like the people living on the island who just go out and they downwind every day all summer. They get caught in the winter, but dude, they're racing. I mean, I don't care if you're 80 or you're 22, like they are so focused on going fast. I think that people will be dropping like mad coin for specialty gear that gives them an edge. They don't care. They're retired. This is the greatest joy in their life. They'll spend anything for that edge.
And also I think it's coming to that point where the skill level is getting to that point anymore, where we're able to ride this higher performance that's coming out, right? It's not just the pros anymore. So yeah, I think there's a lot of hunger, and you can see it with this whole it's who's gonna hopscotch, who's the next one who's got the little bit of an edge, and everyone gravitates to it because they want like this cutting edge. And I think there is somewhere in the market where this, Kai Concepts kind of builds this crazy wild foil that is just unimaginably expensive, because that's the only way you're going to achieve something like that, and someone will buy it,
Yeah. I mean, it's almost the only way you can kind of stand out as a brand nowadays, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm using high modulus.
The unattainable.
Congratulations. Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. It's like, oh, I'm using high modulus. Congratulations. Everybody's using high modulus. Oh, I have, this different connection, fewer screws. Everybody's doing that. Oh, I'm using a scarf joint to connect, I got a monoblock front wing. It's like everybody's doing that. Right. So it's like the only way to kind of step out is to do something like you're saying, like to just have that ultra Gucci high end. And it's kind of the way that racing is in a sense, right? It's either your foil's winning and everybody's buying it, or people are getting second and nobody's really buying it. It's a kind of cutthroat once it gets to that point. So it's brutal.
So, our podcast is very
polished, professional.
How do you say?
Oh, sorry.
Not organized. Not exactly. Like, Walt called me. He's like, dude, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, dude, I have no idea. And I don't know. And so this is exactly what happened, is we don't know. And great conversations came out of it. I think, we all said really great things, mainly me. Kai, I wanna like organize, our thoughts and have a little bit more direction in the podcast sometimes. I don't think that'll ever happen. But when that does happen, because I think there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about on the back end of like, because my mind is always running of like, what can we talk about? And there's just so much. So sometimes I get overwhelmed. But I want to organize some stuff, and I'd love to have you on again, because I think, you have a lot of great insight. You've got a lot of background and history in this foiling scene. So let this not be the last time that we hear from you, on this podcast. I think I'd love to have you back on and have something a little bit more organized if we could. But I loved this conversation today, and I love these people that we get to meet.
This is awesome. I really appreciate it. I mean, I've been following the podcast for a little bit, and I'm like, man, I mean, I can't even believe that I'm on here right now. This is wild. It's just fun, being in the industry and kind of catching this experience. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, man, I hear, I see Chris getting on, I see all these different guys and all, it's funny to see kind of the scene now and who's all into it. And, obviously, yeah, I'm just stoked. There's a lot to always talk about, and I'm stoked. I appreciate you guys having me on, and hope I can make it back sometime and we can nerd out even more.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And dude, yeah, thanks for grinding it out in the industry. I mean, it's like people like you who are stoked coming out of college, like going and
sweeping
working
floors,
awesome,
baby.
Doing whatever to just get in the industry. And it's like that passion and that excitement is why we're all here, right? Is because this is like, feels like the coolest frontier of water sports, or just like adventure sports kind of our generation. And it's really cool to be a part of it. So yeah, stoked to keep building the network, right? It's gonna be cool to see what the next few years look like.
Absolutely. And hopefully we can, Walt, at some point we can share a session. Maybe if you end up going to Hood for AWSI, I'll try and get out there again. And Dylan, I'll keep trying to beat you in the surfer kite foil jumping thing. Is like, I'd only met Dylan once at like the Foil Surf Race League, and we were all kind of, competing and stuff. And then I was like, all right, I didn't get to talk to him too much. And then I got a surfer app, and I'm just like, who's this Kite Puerto Rico guy that keeps beating me all the time? But
Dylan really likes holding that spot. He spends a lot of time thinking about hitting that spot when he sees somebody's got a higher jump than him or whatever. Yeah, come down to Puerto Rico, man. I mean, we should go hit a shack session for sure. Be there all winter.
Right on. Enjoy your Saturday with the fam. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening.
Epic.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Hold on a second. Don't leave. Don't leave. Just gotta stop.